Campaign 2020, how Israel factors into the American election. Humanitarian crisis in Venezuela, the latest on the fight for who controls the country. And why Israel is hopping on the space race and heading to the moon. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. America's relationship with Israel could play a big role in the next presidential election. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup. Well, Israel could be a big issue for Democrats come 2020. Both parties have long supported the Jewish state, but with some new faces in the Democratic Party, that could be changing. Jenna Browder brings us the story.
I think what I meant is like the settlements that are increasing. And
from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
How has this administration responded?
To Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. Younger Democrats coming into Congress are speaking out against Israel and in some cases being called anti-Semitic. Omar was just forced to apologize for this tweet, suggesting AIPAC, the pro-Israel lobbying group, bought the support of her colleagues. It's all causing a big headache for Democratic leadership and the party's 2020 hopefuls, who will have to take up the issue on the debate stage.
Absolutely. I think Republicans will make sure it's an issue. I think Jewish Democrats will make sure it's an issue.
A.B. Stoddard with Real Clear Politics says this could create a big opening for Republicans, and Democrats know that.
They're very concerned about the direction of the party, support for the BDS movement. Any kind of skepticism of Netanyahu is one thing, but to go beyond that and to question the unbreakable bond, I think, is really going to cause a lot of strife within the party.
As well as potential issues with their own voters. A 2018 Pew Research poll found just 27% of Democrats sympathize with Israel, down from 38% in 2001. And younger voters are dramatically less supportive than older voters.
I think that it's a big internal struggle that they don't want to make too public. They don't want to have the debate be out in the open, but they're working behind the scenes very aggressively to try to make it clear to people that we stand with Israel.
A group of prominent Democrats has formed a pro-Israel group to counter any skepticism, but that may not be enough. And in 2020,
but President Trump, when he runs next year, he's not going to do nuance. He's going to hammer them over this in simplistic terms that will make it very complicated for the Democratic nominee.
Instead of talking about other ideas, Democrats may have to defend and explain themselves on an issue few of them want to address. In Washington, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
And here with me now is CBN News Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, how is this going to play out? Will it benefit Democrats to continue to offer up support for the state of Israel?
Well, here's the deal. It'll happen in two phases. So in the primary, I think they need to be careful that they don't come across as, believe it or not, John, too pro-Israel. Wow. Because the Democrat Party is going, as Jenna just pointed out, far to the left. Look, a recent Gallup poll even showed, actually, that 27% of Democrats side with Israel, but 25% of Democrats side with the Palestinians when it comes to the conflict over there. So look, the Democrat Party is split on this, and that's why I think in the primary you'll see the Democrat candidates run to the left, kind of run away from Israel. In the general election, they'll have to obviously change that and be more pro-Israel. Something to watch indeed. Now, health care was a central issue in the midterm elections this past November. What do you think will be some of the defining issues as we head into the 2020 campaign season? Well, immigration, clearly. I think race relations will play a big part in what we're going to see for sure. We just saw that with Jussie Smollett. But beyond that, the economy too. But I don't think, John, it's about issues as much. I really do believe it's going to be about the narrative going forward. What narrative will win out? Will it be socialism on the left, the Bernie Sanders, the AOC, and Elizabeth Warren, and all of that? Or will it be MAGA, right? Make America Great Again, which is what Donald Trump is going to try to continue to promote in the second time around. So I think that's the contour to watch. David, setting aside social issues and policy issues, how much of this upcoming election will really be a focus on anyone but Trump? Well, I think primarily at first it won't be about that. It'll be ideology. In other words, it'll be who can go as far left, and it's about purity. But then, yeah, it'll be, right, party purity at the beginning, but then eventually it will become anybody but Trump. And what I mean by that, not in the general election, but I mean towards the end of the Democrat primary, when people are finally starting to kick the tires enough to where they say, okay, we see what we've got some far left candidates here, but ultimately we have to beat Trump. And I think that will eventually rule the day at the end of the Democrat primary process.
Right now, there are a lot of hats in the ring. We have a little less than a minute, so let me just put that on the table.
Okay, thank you for telling me that.
A lot of hats in the ring for the Democratic primary nomination.
Yeah.
Others will likely join in. Who are you keeping an eye on?
Beto O'Rourke, Joe Biden, Amy Klobuchar, and who is it? No, Kamala Harris.
That's Four Eyes, but that's okay.
Do you call me Four Eyes?
No, not at all.
No.
Why those four?
Well, a lot of different reasons, but I know we have less than a minute. Now we probably have less than 30 seconds. Joe Biden, because of the blue class, or excuse me, the blue collar middle class vote, could dip into Trump. Beto O'Rourke could be the new Obama. I'm not saying he is. Could be. He's got a lot of mojo, and he also kind of combines the young and not the old, but he has the young vibe, but a little bit more moderate to a degree. Progressive and moderate, kind of both. And then Klobuchar, because she is more moderate, but Kamala Harris did have the best unveiling, yep. Right? And also with a prosecutor background, I think she'll be an interesting candidate to watch to kind of have a little bit more of the law and order from the Democrat side.
David Brody, thank you always for your insights.
A pleasure, sir. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Well, the Trump administration delivering a blow to Planned Parenthood. Under a new rule, health clinics must be physically and financially separate from abortion providers in order to receive Title X family planning grants. To get those grants, clinics also won't be allowed to refer patients to other places to get an abortion. They also won't be allowed to promote abortion as a family planning method. A statement from the pro-life group Susan B. Anthony List praises the new rule, saying, in past years, Planned Parenthood has received almost $60 million in Title X grants, adding, we thank President Trump and Secretary Azar for ensuring that the Title X programs is truly about funding family planning, not abortion. Well, turning to Capitol Hill, the House will soon vote on whether to block the president's emergency declaration meant to fund his border wall. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says the vote will take place next Tuesday, and with Democrats in control of the House, it's all but certain to pass. The battle over the president's emergency declaration will then head to the Senate. Well, President Trump is aiming to ease a trade standoff with China. Today, he held high-level talks with Chinese officials, including a meeting trying to hash out a deal with the country's vice premier. With White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us now from the North Lawn. Ben, what kind of progress did they make today?
Well, John, I can tell you no deal in the books today, but these ongoing talks is a good thing. What they discussed affects the global stage as the world's biggest economies are locked in a bit of a trade war. President Trump went to battle over allegations that China deploys predatory tactics to try and overtake U.S. tech dominance. The commander-in-chief imposed tariffs on hundreds of billions of Chinese goods, and Beijing retaliated with tariffs of its own. If negotiations go south, China is bracing for more tariffs to the tune of $200 billion. But Dan Celia of Financial Issues Stewardship Ministries says he doesn't think it'll come to that. Well, Dan, break it down for us. What do these trade talks mean for everyday Americans?
Well, Ben, they mean a lot as far as the global and the economy here in the U.S., the markets. They're extremely important. It's critically important at this point now that this trade negotiation, the trade deal gets resolved.
President Trump is engaged in high-level meetings with Chinese officials aiming to ease a trade standoff. What kind of compromise does China have to offer to get Trump to bite?
Well, I think the compromise is going to have to be on the intellectual property and the theft. So right now, this forced takeover of intellectual property and cyber theft.
Come March 2nd, things could change. Do you think the two nations can reach a deal before the March 1st deadline and the U.S. doubling its tariffs?
I'd be shocked to see that happen, Ben, to be honest with you. I think, but I do think they can agree, President Trump can agree to extend what we have right now to go for another 30 days as long as there's progress being made.
My final question for you. President Trump has said the tariffs have resulted in billions of dollars in revenue for the U.S., but when you get down to it, what kind of impact is this trade war having on the U.S. economy?
Well, it's having an impact. It's having an impact that we will see in the first quarter earnings this year. So we're going to see what kind of impact it's had on mostly the steel, the lightweight metal companies, those that manufacture with steel and lightweight metals, and how that's going to impact them. It is definitely hurt.
Now, next week, President Trump will be in Vietnam for his second summit with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, which means he will not meet face-to-face with China's President Xi Jinping by the March 1st deadline. So if it looks like talks are going well, Trump will most likely offer an extension. John?
Ben Kennedy at the White House. Thanks, Ben. Well, Vice President Mike Pence is heading to Colombia on Monday. His goal? Putting pressure on Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro to step down. Thursday, Maduro closed Venezuela's border with Brazil. Its border with Colombia could be next as he fights to keep foreign aid from entering. His opponent, interim President Juan Guaido, is calling for aid to be assembled at the borders and issued a Saturday deadline for delivery. The U.S. and 60 other nations have recognized Guaido as interim president. CBN News contributor Chuck Holton is with us now for more on the situation in Venezuela. Chuck, thanks for being with us.
Hey, good to be here.
Hey, Chuck, we know you just returned from the area. What's it like on the ground there?
More people than I've ever seen there before. I've been there several times before to Cucuta, and when you go to that bridge, the Simon Bolivar Bridge, it is just absolutely packed with people. And I think part of the reason is because, A, they're more desperate than they've been at any time in the past. B, they're hopeful. Many people have heard about this aid that the United States has sent to Cucuta, and there's some confusion about how the aid is going to be distributed. So a lot of people are coming to Cucuta asking, hey, where do I go to get some of this aid? They are obviously very desperate. There are lots and lots of people that are carting anything of value out of Venezuela into Colombia to sell in order to get enough money to eat. We talked to some smugglers and even followed them on their route as they walk illegally back and forth between Venezuela and Colombia. And that was pretty fascinating. They're bringing wire that they're tearing out of the walls to get the copper. They're bringing car parts, anything that they could sell for scrap just to get a little bit of food to eat.
Speaking of Colombia, we know you were there when Senator Marco Rubio traveled to Colombia to apply pressure for Maduro to step down. Now we know that Vice President Mike Pence is heading there this weekend. Any signs that these tactics are working?
Well, not so far, insofar as Maduro is taking a very hard stand. He's sending troops to the border. We saw in Brazil just today that the troops there shot and killed a person and wounded many more as they were trying to get some of that aid into Venezuela. So he is taking a very hard stance and saying this aid will not come into Venezuela, and it's going to be a pretty dicey situation. But in reality, he loses either way. I mean, if you think about it, Maduro kills people on the border, he's going to lose. If he allows the aid in, then Juan Guaido wins and he loses as well. So he's stuck between a rock and a hard place on this one.
So, Chuck, what's your sense then? How do you think this will all play out? How will this resolve?
You know, if I had to make a bet, if you look back at when that border was closed back in 2014 by Maduro, he wasn't allowing anybody to cross that border, that bridge that I was just on in Cucuta. And finally, a bunch of women, about 500 women dressed in white, and they just went to the border and they said, we are crossing this border today to go get food for our families. You can shoot your mothers and your grandmothers if you want to, but we're going to all cross. And the guard just stepped aside and let them through. That's what Juan Guaido is hoping will happen in this case.
So a real sense of desperation there. Last question for you. I'm sure you've heard of these dueling concerts that are taking place, one with Live Aid with Richard Branson and then Maduro offering a counter concert. What's that all about?
Well, Maduro is insisting that there aren't any problems in Venezuela. There's plenty of food, there's plenty of medicine, but the people know different. And I can guarantee you that the people who attend the concert on the Colombian side are going to be they are absolutely desperate. These people are saying, we can't wait any longer. We are dying. We need this assistance. And I talked to one woman who gave me some hope. She's the wife of an army officer in Venezuela. And she said, listen, the army is not behind Maduro, but nobody wants to be the first person to stand up to a dictator for obvious reasons. And so if this is an opportunity on Saturday to stand up to Maduro en masse, I think the military will change sides, and I think that they will do the right thing. Let's just hope that they don't open fire on a bunch of innocent protesters. That would be absolutely horrific.
We will certainly be keeping this whole situation in prayer. CBN News contributor Chuck Holton, thanks so much for being with us.
Sure.
Coming up, a mission to the moon and the latest nation to join the space race. Welcome back. An Israeli company has made a stunning announcement. They could have a cure for cancer within a year. That news made headlines around the world. CBN News sat down with one of the men working on the project, and our Lori Johnson brings us the science behind this promising research.
Scientists all over the world have been looking for a cure for cancer for years. Now, 2 Israeli researchers think they've found one.
We didn't want to have another drug like everyone else that would give relief to some cancer patients and then the cancer would come back. We wanted really to cure something like antibiotics.
4 years ago, Dr. Alon Murad and his partner, Dr. Hanan Itzhaki of Advanced Evolution Biotechnologies, or AB, started research on a cure for cancer. The concept is based on the same strategy used to combat AIDS. The patient is given a cocktail or mix of medications designed to prevent the disease from becoming resistant to any one drug.
Because, you know, HIV is very mutagenic creature, same as cancer. This is the problem with cancer, that is very mutagenic, and these mutations help the cancer escape the therapy.
Here in this tiny lab in Ness Ziona, Israel, these 2 scientists came up with a theory they hope will cure cancer. They call it Mutato. That stands for multi-target toxin.
The main thing here is multiple targeting. Instead of attacking one target at a time, we connect together several peptides and we attack several targets at a time. And because of that, the cancer won't be able, statistically, won't be able to escape the therapy, and this is what happened with AIDS. And this is what would happen here in cancer.
And they point out, since this cocktail specifically targets cancer cells, it is not as harmful to healthy ones.
The other thing is, because of these targeting peptides are connected together, and there's what we call the avidity effect, the side effect would be much, much, much lower. So it would be like an antibiotic.
Murad says if scientists could come up with 100 different peptides, they believe various combinations could treat each kind of cancer.
Each patient would get his own mutator that would fit perfectly his cancer. He would have almost no side effects, and in no time he would be cured completely, because the cancer cells would be completely killed, every one of them.
Murad says they have 5 peptides in the preclinical stage. When the article came out, it basically caught the medical community by surprise, because AB's experiments have been limited and not published in medical journals. CBN News approached Dr. Charles Geyer, Associate Director for Clinical Research at VCU Massey Cancer Center, who was one of many that urged caution. This news is based on limited information from the company and its researchers, and the results from their preclinical experiments have not been published in any peer-reviewed academic journals. I would approach this news with healthy skepticism and also remind people that it typically takes years to translate promising preclinical research from the laboratory to evaluation in the clinic. Murad said he was surprised by the criticism.
At least give me the credit. Ask me what is the mechanism of our mutator, or read carefully the first article in the Jerusalem Post to see what I really said.
Morad said they need funding to move their research along faster and would like to collaborate with larger pharmaceutical companies. He also made clear the one goal on his mind.
I don't care about the money. I want to cure cancer patients.
Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Thanks, Lori. Israel is entering the space race. Today, a Tel Aviv-based organization sent the country's first ever private spacecraft to land on the moon. Chris Mitchell brings us the story from Jerusalem.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition.
Israel is on its way to the moon. A dramatic nighttime launch from Cape Canaveral sent Israel's privately funded lunar lander on its way to a rendezvous with history. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was on hand in the control room.
It's a big step for Israel, but it's a giant step for Israeli technology. The strength of the state of Israel in the world is rising, 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 rising to the moon.
The spacecraft is called Bereshit, a reference to the words "in the beginning" from Genesis. While only about the size of a washing machine, its mission is out of this world. After launching from Cape Canaveral, the plan will include several lunar orbits before making a soft landing on the moon's surface. The 40-day voyage culminates with a landing scheduled for April 11th. It will then send back video and high-resolution pictures and perform experiments. The mission has two goals. One is called the Apollo effect, hoping to inspire the next generation.
We want the Israeli kids and the Israeli youth, we want to encourage them to learn STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and we hope that the mission will create the effect and encourage them. The second goal is to promote the space industry here in Israel. I think we got it. One of the goals is already achieved.
And Tebi says Space IL wants to show a small country with a small budget can join the prestigious moon landing club of the U.S., Russia, and China. Israeli President Reuven Rivlin calls the venture Zionism at its finest. The spacecraft is also bringing a time capsule, including a miniature copy of the Bible, along with Israeli national symbols, including the saying, Am Israel Hai, the people of Israel live. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And for more news from the Middle East, tune in to Jerusalem Dateline on the CBN News Channel. It airs every Friday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. Well, Black Panther was a hit with millions around the world, breaking box office records. But it also brought a life-saving trick to one Missouri boy. That story when we come back. The breakout film Black Panther is up for 7 Oscars this weekend, including Best Picture. But for one young fan, it's already a winner. I got a chance to talk to him about why he credits the movie and God for saving his life.
I have seen gods fly.
Black Panther scored tremendous reviews and broke box office records from the start, becoming the second highest grossing film of 2018. With 7 Oscar nominations, including the first ever superhero film to earn a Best Picture nod, it continues to break barriers.
How are you feeling today, Mama? Proud.
For 11-year-old Xavier Cunningham, the film stands alone.
Do you remember what you told me?
I told you about the movie Black Panther.
We first talked to Xavier last September, just days after leaving the hospital due to a near-fatal accident.
She was like, oh my gosh, who did this to you?
He had this metal-looking rod, what I thought was an arrow, coming out of his cheek here.
Xavier tripped, leaving this treehouse, and fell face first into a 17-inch meat skewer. It barely missed his left eye, spinal cord, and major blood vessels. After doctors described this medical marvel, I just had to ask Xavier about that stake.
How did you know not to take it out? Did you think about it?
I watched Black Panther, like the end of it, how he just takes it out and dies, and so I was like, nope.
Ahead of the Oscars, he explained it a little more.
It was either like a dagger or a sword, and then he pulled it out and died.
So you're telling me that by watching that scene, you knew not to pull out the skewer from your face?
Oh, kind of.
If you had the chance to talk to some of the movie producers or the director or even the actors, what would you like to tell them?
Well, I'll just say I'm glad they put it in there, because otherwise I probably would have pulled it out.
But to Xavier, his true hero is Jesus Christ.
He gave his life for us. After this, it's just like he truly is the God Almighty.
In the past 5 months, he's received a clean bill of health with barely noticeable scarring. And the mayor even declared 1 October Saturday as Xavier Cunningham Miracle Day. His dad says the experience brought the whole family closer and strengthened their faith.
It makes the gospel come to life, and it makes it just everything very real, very, very alive.
A real-life story bigger than the silver screen.
Xavier Cunningham, one remarkable young man with an amazing story to tell. Well, that's going to do it for Faith Nation tonight. Hope you have a great weekend.